Hello and welcome back to the Lowering Your A1C and Beyond training. I'm Laura Bongiorno, your diabetes health coach, and you are here for day 2 on owning your ratios and rates. So yesterday we talked about goal setting and setting yourself up for success, whereas today we're going to go more into the tactical and understand why it's so important to be able to understand how your rates and ratios work and owning them. Number 2, why most people avoid changing them on their own. And then number 3, 3 principles all around basal or background insulin, insulin to carb ratio, and correction factor. So before we get started, I want you to think about what word describes how you feel thinking about your next endocrinologist appointment or doctor's appointment. For me, I feel relaxed, but that's not always the case, not always how it used to be. For a while, I would say a better word to describe how I felt thinking about my next endo appointment as that was creeping up on the calendar was anticipation. And that anticipation included a little bit of excitement and a lot of anxiety. And maybe you relate to that, but that anxiety for me really came from being anxious about what my A1C was going to be, what the endo would say to me. She was never judgmental or anything, but I didn't want to feel like I failed, I guess, or let my parents down or anything like that. But I did also feel excitement that it was a blank slate and a fresh start, and she would change all my rates and make it better for next time so I can lower my A1C. And the challenge with that and why that really stayed the same for so many years for me was because I viewed my endocrinologist as the person who was going to solve my problems, instead of somebody who was here to support me along my journey. And so when you look at what your endocrinologist is likely doing is they're looking at a section of your day, right? Or a snippet, of the past 3 months. They're looking at maybe the CGM reports from the past 2 weeks and saying, oh, interesting, you had a trend of, going high over here at this time of the day, let's say 12 a.m. to 5 a.m., right? And they're looking at that, and you might ask you a few questions, but more likely than not, they'll just change a few ratios and say, okay, let's try this and come back next time 3 months later, right? You don't need 3 months to figure out if a basal rate or an insulin to carb ratio or correction factor needs to be adjusted, or if it's right or if it's wrong. And we want to be able to understand those signs and patterns on our own, so we don't have to wait 3 months until the next change and to make progress with our blood sugars. And this is kind of that holistic model that I want to keep bringing up, is that this is the holistic model of the rates and ratios, but then even beyond this, it's how are these working in tandem with your hormones, your exercise, insulin sensitivity, nutrition, all of those different things. So if we understand this, there's a good chance that you understand I need to change my rates, I'm having so many lows, so many highs here, but I'm not changing them, right? If you understand that, why do you think that you're not changing them? And I want you to know that this isn't just you, right? Most people are intimidated by changing their rates on their own. And it's because we're taught from day one that you go to the endocrinologist, they change your rates for you. And at the end of the day, though, it's your body. And for me, at least, I wanted to figure out, wait a second, I just want to be able to understand this so I don't have to rely on somebody else to tell me what changes to make, and I can understand what changes that I needed to make from day to day, from week to week, from month to month, or whatnot. So what are the 2 main reasons why people shy away from putting changes on their pump or for their shots? Number 1 is that they lack confidence, right? Confidence in how to change the rates, what to change them to, why we have to change them. And then the second reason is lacking prioritization, prioritization. There we go, okay? And lacking prioritization, really knowing that diabetes is this thing that's always this ongoing thing, and I don't want to have to prioritize identifying the patterns and learning about this and boom, boom, boom. And so I want you to look at these 2 different arenas and decide what camp you're in, because that's really important to understanding where your roadmap needs to go. If it's more up here in the confidence, this is very much tactical and the tools and a step and a process to hold your hand through it. If it's lacking prioritization, this right here is a lot of the mindset work. And then likely after you prioritize it, it's probably a little bit of this too. So knowing that now and kind of knowing where you might stand, let's go over the 3 different principles that every type 1 needs to know, not a lot of type 1s understand, about basal and background insulin, insulin to carb ratios, and correction factors. So the first piece is that hormones, insulin sensitivity, and routine, they all change, okay? That's a principle. They all change. They all change throughout the day. They might change based on your lifestyle switching up, based on things coming up with activity or sleep changes or switching jobs, becoming a mom maybe. And so with that, if we know that they change, then we have to look at the rates that we currently have and say, when was the last time this was changed? And does this match up to where my hormones are at, what my routine is like, where my insulin sensitivity and resistance is? So that's the first piece. The first principle is understanding that it changes. It never stays the same. I remember when I was younger, I had like the same rates for like 5 years and like for the most part. And then when I started obviously, understanding this more for myself years later and taking a lot of time to understand my body's patterns, I was like, what the heck? Like if I knew this back then, like I wouldn't have been so frustrated by, wait, I just gave 15 carbs here, a bolus for it. Why am I going high at this time? And is it that? Is it the insulin to carb ratio? Is it the basal rate? Is it the correction factor? What is it? And so just understanding that principle first. And then number 2 is that really where the magic happens is testing and fine tuning. So if you feel like you have a good base of all these things, the fine tune comes in maybe adding more times, really double checking that all the ones that you have are correct. And we have a process that we take our clients through and students during the A1C shift method course that holds your hands exactly through figuring out the exact rates for basal, background insulin, insulin to carb ratio, and correction factor. So it's not like a guessing game and it's not this like ongoing process, right? It's a step-by-step process. And you really want to look for that and create that for yourself. For accountability purposes, right? And to making sure that you're on track and checking all the boxes needed to make sure that these are where they need to be. And then the third one, the last piece is about control IQ. So control IQ, auto mode, as pumps have really, and technology have really expanded over the years, there's a lot of reliance on, oh, I want to lower my A1C, I'm going to fix my numbers, I'm just going to simply go on a pump that can do it for me. And what I found is there has to be a combination of not total reliance on the technology, not total reliance on no technology at all, but a beautiful marriage. And so control IQ works a lot better and is less frustrating for people when all of these things are correct. So if you're on a pump that has control IQ on it and you're really frustrated, you're like, oh, this thing was supposed to, lower my A1C to this, and it's only really doing it by, let's say, lower my average by, 10 points instead of the 30 I wanted it to. What's going on here? I feel like I'm more out of control than I'm in control. Then that has to do a lot with your base rates, making sure that they're correct. So 3 principles right here. That concludes our training for day 2. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm really looking forward to supporting you through day 3 training tomorrow on exercise and blood sugar management. I know you guys have been requesting this, so I will see you there tomorrow. And as always, let me know how you enjoyed the video. Bye guys.